Like, who are the favorites in every game? You should basically always be advancing them. And then the games that I'd be looking for, if there's a situation where a seeding, like a 1 versus a 9 or a 2 versus a 7, it looks like that's a big difference. 1-8, 2-7. That's a big difference in seed. But the point spread would actually be very small, like a 1-point spread or a 2-point spread. I would view those as opportunities to pick a seed upset, because most people will just like pencil in the 2 because it's a 2, and you'll know better, and you'll know there's not a big difference between the teams, and so you'll like gain on people for something that's really just a coin flip. And you're just picking the opposite side of the coin, but nobody else has that side. Everybody's got the other side, as opposed to like, I'm going to pick Duquesne. Like, Duquesne has, like, in the market, has, like, a 10% chance to win this game. Don't overthink this one. Meanwhile, like, this is why people that are, like, bet and are smart, so I feel like sometimes lose brackets to, like, somebody in your family that doesn't know anything, because you're like, oh, Duquesne, like, I'm so smart. And it's like, what? Like, no, just BYU. Like, that's all you're supposed to do there. Like, get the 1 point. Don't lose a point to the entire field in your pool, and move on to the next game. So the only games where you'd be picking upsets, especially in the first 2 rounds, would be like a spread of, let's say, like less than 3 or less than 2, where you can gain something on the field by betting, or not by betting, by picking the opposite side. These are usually like second round 1-8, 1-9, or 2-7, 2-10 games.
What would you have, just quick, and like we'll move on to the other regions in a second. Like if Drake plays Iowa State and then like BYU Illinois, do you have any thoughts on what those spreads might look like in the second round games? So
the reason why I kind of say like you should pick the point spread thing, I like Wazoo Drake against Iowa State. They're going to be a big dog in the game. Like they're going to be like a 6-point underdog or something in the game. Like it's going to be really big. Iowa State's rating is massive. The game will be a really low possession game, so the spread will be a little smaller. But like you should just, like, if the point is to win a bracket, like you should just pick Iowa State. I try to just tell you like, well, I have them advancing because I kind of would want to bet them in that game. That's like how I look at it. And that's the same thing with Illinois. Like I'd kind of like them against Illinois, but you should just advance Illinois. Like just do that because it's more likely to happen. That's why betting is different. The price that you get is why you make the bet. In brackets, there's no price. It's not like, well, if you pick Duquesne and you're right, you get 10 points. No, you get 1 point, just like if you picked the team that's a 10-point favorite. So the spread would be pretty big, is my point. Wazoo and Drake are rated almost the same, and Iowa State would be more than like a 2-possession-ish kind of a favorite in that game.
Who do you have winning the national championship in your bracket?
I have a final, and I've actually tried to shop. Nobody does exact matchups this year. Have you seen them anywhere for matchups in the final?
It's so funny because you mentioned it to me when we talked on the phone earlier that you were looking into betting these, and I tried to find them, and I was going to call you to be like, hey, where can I find these? And I was like, I won't call him. I'll just ask him during the show. I was also unable to find them.
I don't know if it's because I'm in Connecticut and like some of the Connecticut markets are restricted. You can't bet East region here in Connecticut, but you can bet to win the national championship. This stuff makes no sense to me. But like, is that I was like, am I restricted from seeing finals matchups? I can't find like offshores that have them at price. So like, look, Connecticut will be low priced in all of them. I think Arizona Duke is way more likely than what I'm guessing the prices that you'll find on it to happen based on the ratings of the teams. I have Arizona Duke playing in the final and Arizona winning the national championship for fun. From a rating standpoint, UConn over anybody and UConn winning. Like it's just like that's like the smart one. I'll go like a little fun here just because like we're at the end and it's fun. UConn wins the national championship. If it's chalky and ratings and all that stuff, I'll pick Arizona Duke and I'll have Arizona winning.
And that'd be Duke and Arizona for the second time this century in the national championship game. Duke having won the first time right back in 2001 with the Shane Battier team. I have UConn beating Arizona, Purdue beating Marquette. I had originally went with Marquette, but I'll go with Purdue in the national championship game. And then Donovan Clingan and UConn get the best of Zach Edey and Purdue, and UConn goes back-to-back, winning the national championship.
You were kind of detailing your process right before the break. Give us an idea of, like, when you enter a bracket pool, like, what's the strategy that you employ very briefly? And maybe give us a couple examples of teams that maybe you're buying that maybe people aren't buying right now.
Well, I always do 3 brackets. I know I say 50, but generally I do 3 brackets. One is extremely chalk-driven, point spread-driven. Team A beats Team B on a neutral site at any time, right? It's kind of boring. Then that third bracket is where you get a little bit crazy, and that's where I deep dive into this team runs zone, this team can't shoot threes, San Diego State is a slug, Arizona wants to go fast. I mean, that's where you get into styles and clashes. And you start looking at things like Drake can really give Iowa State a problem. You start looking at things like Morehead State. They have a path to the Sweet 16. And that's where you open up your mind and you look at the styles and the clashes and the offense and the defense and all that. That third bracket gets wild. And then you get a Final Four that looked like last year's Final Four. So who knows which way we're going to go. But 3 brackets all the time for me.
Kind of like, what is your most confident Final Four in this year's NCAA tournament?
Maybe that's bracket 1.
Yeah.
How about this? How about this? Like, most confident, not meaning like what's in bracket 1, but if just like, what if you had to enter one bracket to save your life, and you could pick some upsets if you want to, or you could go chalky. Right. Like, what would the Final Four be in that bracket?
I got Houston, Tennessee on one side, and Iowa State and North Carolina on the other. I said this, I think, a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks ago. I've been buying teams that have the best 3-man rotation in all of college basketball. It is the only way you would have found out Florida Atlantic or San Diego State would have made their deep runs last year. It's the only way you would have seen North Carolina get to the national title game 2 years ago. I want to back teams that have multiple lineups in the top 500 of 3-man rotations. That's Iowa State. That's Arizona. That's Houston, of course. Those kinds of teams get a strong push from me, and maybe I'll disregard the fact that you can't defend, off dribble threes, or maybe you have a problem with isolation or transition defense. So, but those are definitely teams I support. But that's the 4 that I have. Real chalky at 1-2 per side, but that's what I got.
I'm sure you've seen like how the futures market is shaped for the winner of the tournament, with UConn a favorite, kind of a tier of teams behind them, Arizona, Carolina, etc. In about 30, 45 seconds, is there one bet to win the NCAA tournament due to price that people should make right now before the tournament starts?
That's a good question, because generally all the prices are completely deflated. You get better value with a rolling parlay, but there's only like one book out of 80 that allows that. So I like it when people mention it. But I think Dayton is really worth your money if they can get past Arizona there. If they can have a hot night against a zone team like Baylor, they can make themselves to the Elite Eight. If you need a long shot, I would think you'd want to go Baylor. Other than that, Iowa State absolutely belongs in the same breath as Houston. If they're not priced the same as Houston or within an earshot of that, they have value on them, because, in my opinion, they shouldn't be a 2 seed. They should have stolen North Carolina's 1 seed.
Who do you have making the Final Four?
I've got UConn. I've got Arizona. Now, notice I said I don't think that they can win it all. I still think they could make the Final Four. I know that sounds crazy, but that's just how I feel about it. Arizona. When I look at their draw, okay, Long Beach State to start, they're not losing that game. Dayton is a very soft 7, and Arizona's better than Nevada. I like Arizona to get to the second weekend. Baylor doesn't play defense. Baylor could lose early. Colgate's been close. I don't see it. I think Baylor will beat Colgate. But, Baylor can lose to New Mexico. So Arizona could be playing New Mexico in the Sweet 16. In fact, that's what I have on my bracket. Sometimes it's draw dependent. When everyone's like, they're a Sweet 16 candidate, they're a Sweet 16 candidate, they could go this far. It's a bracket. You could be a 4 seed and beat a 13 and a 12 to make the Sweet 16. You might not face the 5. So it's all about the draw. Purdue got a very nice draw. Better than UConn's. Really, they did. Better than UConn's to get to the Elite Eight. Tennessee's tough. So I got UConn, I got Arizona, I got Houston, and I got Tennessee. I'm going on the Dalton Connect train. Give me the Volunteers and Rick Barnes to break through, make a Final Four.
John, quick answer here, because you gave us all those historical trends that basically say that that's not what the Final Four is going to be, that there's going to be like a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10. Somebody's going to disrupt that party. Give me the team that's not in your Final Four that keeps you up at night, that maybe can be a part of those historical trends. Let's say in about 15 seconds.
Woo! That's a
New
hell
Mexico?
of a question. New Mexico could. They were in my Final Four in the preseason, so that would be fitting. Florida's keeping me up at night. Don't sleep on Washington State if they can get past Drake. They got to get past Drake first. And then I'm going to go with a wild card outside the box, guys, and say if they watch out for Texas A&M. Great guard play. Their talent was never the question. We've had 1 seeds. We've had 1-1 go down in the first weekend, the last 3 tournaments. Houston going into offensive droughts concerns me. I have Houston in my Final Four, But I do think that 1 versus 8 or 9 is going to be a challenging game. And A&M has Tyrese Radford and Wade Taylor. And when you have hot guards, you can go on a run.